Welcome to Pathway to Peace with Terry McIntosh. I'm Gary Morris. This is a timely message in search of a positive truth that brings healing, peace, and safety to the individual as well as the entire nation.
Terry McIntosh here. God bless you, saints. We've covered a lot of ground in the last several weeks on the path to peace and reconciliation of Jews and Palestinians. If you've missed anything, go to the youtube.com search engine bar, enter Pathway to Peace with Terry McIntosh, and review anything and everything you've missed. Understanding the foundation of this subject is critical. In this episode, number 10, we are recapping historical and Bible facts that have been buried for centuries and posing a serious question that begs to be answered. In review, the first book of the Torah, the Christian Old Testament, Genesis 48, sets the stage to correctly identify the whole house of Bible Israel. Jacob adopts his two grandsons, birthed by Joseph, and his Arabic-Egyptian wife Asenath, Ephraim and Manasseh, as his own sons, and says that they were to be called by his name Israel. The half-tribes of Israel were thus born. While many want to argue that all Egyptians were dark-skinned Hamites descended from Ham, the Bible tells a different story, and history confirms the Bible narrative. And for clarity of the Bible narrative, it's important to recognize that some of the children of Ishmael, the son of Hagar and father of all the Arab nations, were also called Mennonites in the Bible. Genesis 37:28 confirms that Mennonites are called Ishmaelites. So, when the Mennonite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, that is the Arabs, who took him to Egypt. The Ishmaelites, or Mennonites, often traveled to Egypt on business, took wives, and bartered slaves. An Arabic colony had settled in Egypt according to Juba, an African prince and historian. Pliny the Elder, a Roman scholar and historian, preserved a little-known fact as recorded by Juba. He documented that the city of the sun, Heliopolis, was one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt and was founded by Arabs, and that the inhabitants of the Nile were not Ethiopians, rather they were Arabs. The Bible name for Heliopolis is On, and the Bible confirms that Asenath was from the city of On. With this background, and when we apply the ancient Bible story to the modern scientific data, it's not a stretch to understand that it started with the children of Joseph and with God's obvious blessings. It is the Bible story that we rely upon. DNA only confirms the Bible story. Considering that Joseph married an Arabic-Egyptian woman from the Arabic colony named On, and considering that Israel adopted his grandsons as his own, and considering that the birthright was passed to the children of Joseph in 1 Chronicles 5, and considering that Israel placed his name upon them, and considering that the Bible trail of ancestry is confirmed by DNA test results, and considering God's promise to them, should we support an all-Jewish nation-state? Or as Christians, should we support God's plan for the whole of Israel, which includes today's Palestinians? They are not Bible Philistines. They are descendants of the original Israel. I'm presenting the Bible view, not a current political perspective, but it should have a positive effect on politics. Supporting reconciliation and equal rights of Hebraic Palestinians will help facilitate a national revival of great magnitude. Listen to this, saints. Moses said to the original house of Israel in Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 through 8, I have told you everything the Lord your God will do for you, and I've also told you the curses he will put on you if you reject him. He will scatter you in faraway countries, but when you realize that he is punishing you, return to him with all your heart and soul and start obeying the commands I've given to you today. Then he will stop punishing you and treat you with kindness. He may have scattered you to the furthest countries on earth, but he will bring you back to the land that had belonged to your ancestors and make you even more successful and powerful than they ever were. You and your descendants are stubborn, but the Lord will make you willing to obey Him and love Him with all your heart and soul, and you will enjoy a long life. Then the Lord your God will remove the curses from you and put them on those enemies who hate and attack you. You will again obey the laws and teachings of the Lord, and He will bless you with many children, large herds and flocks, and abundant crops. The Lord will be happy to do these good things for you, just as He did for your ancestors. But you must decide once and for all to worship Him with all your heart and soul, and to obey everything in the book of God's law. Wow, saints, that's great. God's love is great. He's calling Jews and Palestinians to Himself right now, today, while so many of us are bogged down in politics, preferring one over the other. God's right, and we're always wrong. So what to do about it? Well, let's recap some more Bible and secular history before we do anything at all. The original Israel lived in the north. Judah lived in the south. Israel went into captivity to Assyria because of their wickedness and lost their national identity. God promised to leave a remnant in the land and to eventually restore them. Foreigners moved into Samaria, but the prophesied remnant remained. Judah later went into captivity to Babylon, but God kept them together for a purpose. Jesus was to be born from the tribe of Judah. When Judah returned to the Holy Land, they set up the Hasmonean dynasty, which lasted about 150 years. They went back into captivity because of their wickedness. Jesus was born in Bethlehem and grew up under the Roman occupation. The stump left from northern Israel became known as Samaritans because they lived in Samaria. Jesus encountered a Samaritan woman at the well in John 4. She proclaimed her Israelite heritage, and Jesus accepted her testimony. So the Bible confirms that Samaritans were descendants of the original house of Israel. Judeans, or Jews, considered the Samaritan brothers as half-breeds and unworthy, and Samaritans hated Jews, much like the situation exists today. Samaritans were among the first disciples of Jesus. When He told the disciples not to go into Samaria, it was likely because of the animosity that existed between Jews and Samaritans. It didn't take long, however, for new disciples to embrace each other after the resurrection of Christ. Jews were expelled from Jerusalem and Judea in 135 AD when they revolted against Rome for a final time. Samaritans did not participate in the rebellion. The remaining Judeans, Jews, were dispersed around the world. The northern stump, the Samaritan Christians, moved into Jerusalem and were the Christians that the Crusaders came to free with the advent of Islamic invasion. A lot of bloody history occurred, but not relevant to this subject. Point is that the northern stump from the original house of Israel had remained in the land. Rome named it Syria Philistia because of the ancient connection to the Philistines, which means Palestine. The name Palestine stuck, and eventually those living in the land were called Palestinians. That included the stump of Israel and returning Jews in modern history. All of this is confirmed by Bible and historical documented events. Now, regarding who is whom, the majority of the stump are today's Palestinians. They are not descendants of the Philistines or Ishmael. They are bloodline Hebraic descendants of the original house of Israel. Modern DNA confirms what the Bible teaches about it. When Jews from the house of Judah returned to the land and declared a state in 1948, they took the name Israel to themselves and plunged the world into darkness regarding recognition of the stump. By then, most of the stump had converted to Islam and adopted the Arabic culture. They were absorbed by it politically, religiously, and culturally. Christians declared prophecy fulfilled when the Jewish state was born, but that was only half true. God has promised to restore all of them, not just some of them. Overzealous preachers and Zionist operatives created the false assertion that Jews represent all of Israel. They do not. With the advent of DNA proof, it's clear to an intellectually honest person that the stump, today's Palestinians, are as much Hebraic as any Jew. If the name Jew actually applied to the whole house of Israel, they would be called Palestinian Jews. They're not actually Jews, and not from Judea, and not from the tribe of Judah, rather from the half-tribes fathered by Joseph. It was their ancestors first called Israel. The Bible makes a clear distinction between the two houses of Judah and Israel. In summary, prophecy is not fulfilled until we recognize and accept the stump, the Palestinians, as part of the whole. They are dry bones waiting to live again. So what should our posture be? Christian theology has pitted brother against brother when the goal should be to preach Christ to them and set them free from the bondage of false religion and labor to unite the brothers under Christ so that they can work in unity to fulfill prophecy and tear down the high places of false gods and religion. No, Palestinian Arabs are not the enemy. Many of them belong to the house of Israel, and they will be restored. And we can be a part of this divine appointment by ministering on the premise that neither Jew nor Palestinian, regardless of origin, is the enemy. Rather, religion divides and takes captives to its own theology. And those are the strongholds to tear down, not people or their aspirations to live decent lives. In the book of Joshua, before the Battle of Jericho, Joshua approached a man he did not recognize. And chapter 5 tells the story. In 13, now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And in verse 14, "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Saints, this should be the Christian posture towards Jews and Palestinians. The Lord is not on either side as a preference. He has a plan that must be worked out. We should ask the Lord, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Can we do that? The remedy we seek demands Palestinian-Jewish unity under Christ. It has to begin somewhere for prophecy to be fulfilled. It has to begin sometime by someone. Who else among the Christian world will plant the seeds and prepare for the harvest among Jews and Palestinians without the fear, the prejudice, and the politics that surround us? A choice is made and demonstrated by our actions. There's no middle road. We must either accept God's plan and immediately take action to facilitate it, or we go silent and look the other way. We must stop supporting theologies and agendas that defy His plan. We must stop embracing prophecies that are all based on a false theology of Jewish domination. We must speak up and stop the religious crime of prejudice, racism, and division. We must shower Jews and Palestinians with the love of God without fail. It is God's plan, saint. It's our duty to facilitate it. Hey, time's expired again. It goes so fast. But I want you to stay in touch with me by email. You can do that by writing info@usajourney.us. That's info@usajourney.us. Or text 270-217-0132. And, of course, if you've just tuned in to us and want to catch up, you can find all of these messages posted on the YouTube station. You go to their search engine, put in Pathway to Peace with Terry McIntosh. It'll pull them up. You can review any or all of them and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss anything going forward. Got to go now. We'll be back here next week. Hope you can be here with us. In the meanwhile, God bless you. McIntosh out.
You can write us at Post Office Box 766, Paducah, Kentucky 42002, USA. That's Post Office Box 766, Paducah. That's spelled Paducah, Paducah, Kentucky 42002, USA.